Okay, so when you hear the term neoliberalism, what comes to mind? Probably things like free markets, deregulation, globalization, right? It's the economic system that's pretty much defined our world for the last few decades. But what if I told you its deepest secret? The real logic driving it all has nothing to do with economics. What if it's actually spiritual?
I know. The common take is that neoliberalism is this totally secular, cold-hearted thing. A system that, yeah, has created a ton of wealth, but it's also kind of sucked the soul out of everything. It's often painted as this ultimate worship of money over meaning, plain and simple.
But this is the twist we're digging into. What if that whole system, which seems so cold and calculating, is actually the end result of a 500-year-old spiritual quest? A search that gets at our deepest anxieties about salvation, purpose, and our place in the cosmos.
To really get this, we've got to jump in the time machine. We're tracing this idea all the way back to the 16th century, to a moment of massive religious upheaval that you've probably heard of, the Protestant Reformation. This is where Martin Luther basically stood up and challenged the entire power structure of his time. He put forward this radical idea that you don't need a priest, a bishop, or even the Pope to have a direct line to God. Suddenly, this concept of a personal relationship with the divine just exploded. It was a complete game changer.
And this shift was just profound. We went from a world where the church was the gatekeeper, a priest literally told you if you were saved, to a world where you, the individual, were suddenly in charge of your own salvation. Now that sounds incredibly empowering, and it was, but it came with a huge, huge catch.
And that catch is everything. If the fate of your eternal soul depends on something happening privately, inside your own head and heart, how can you ever be 100% sure? This new freedom created a deep, gnawing anxiety. I think I'm saved, but am I? Really? Or am I just telling myself what I want to hear?
This spiritual insecurity created a vacuum. The old church, for all its issues, offered certainty. You could do penance, get absolution. You got a clear answer. Without that, people were desperate. They started looking for signs, any tangible, real-world proof that they were, in fact, in God's good graces.
And the answer they found would literally reshape civilization, the Protestant work ethic. This is the point in history where your job stopped being just about survival and transformed into a spiritual mission to prove you were one of the chosen.
Let's just walk through the logic. 1. Your salvation is all on you. 2. That's terrifying. 3. You desperately need some external proof to calm that terror. And 4. Where do you find that proof? In your work. In the real world. Your successful business, your bountiful harvest, these became the visible signs of your invisible grace. All of a sudden, productivity wasn't just work, it was a form of worship.
And you can literally watch how the source of this proof changes over time. In the 1500s, it was a priest's blessing. By the 1700s, in a more agricultural world, it was the quality of your farm. Then, as we become a commercial society, it becomes your success in the market. It's like the place you went for God's judgment moved from the church to the dirt, and finally to the Dow Jones.
So how does this all lead to today's world? Well, even as Western society became more and more secular on the surface, this deep spiritual logic didn't just go away. It just went underground. It became the subconscious engine driving how we think about the economy.
The explicitly religious language faded, sure, but the underlying structure stayed perfectly intact. The market became the new impersonal God. It's seen as the ultimate, impartial judge of your value, your discipline, and your worth. Your success or failure isn't just a number in a bank account anymore. It's treated like a moral verdict on you as a person.
And if you believe, even subconsciously, that the market is a higher judge, then think about the kind of system you'd want to build. You'd insist that markets must be totally free and untouched, right, so they can reflect that true will. You'd argue everyone needs a fair shot to participate because everyone deserves a chance at that salvation. The whole ideology just clicks into place.
And this isn't some abstract theory. It's incredibly personal. Just look at modern advertising. So much of it comes down to a form of judgment. The message is pretty clear. If you don't optimize yourself, if you don't hustle, if you don't stay in shape, the market will judge you. And that judgment feels like it's about your core worth.
So the real kicker is this. Our global economic system, the one that seems so cold and godless, might actually be the modern version of a very old, very human, and deeply spiritual search for certainty and salvation in a world that doesn't offer easy answers.
And that leaves us with a pretty provocative question to chew on. If we run with this idea for a second, that the market is acting like a kind of divine voice, sorting the worthy from the unworthy, then what is that voice telling us about our world and about ourselves right now?